pole-to-pole campaign was an effort to do basically two things. Go to the places where the planet is already experiencing the effects of climate change, and also confront the perpetrators.
The key issue that must come out of Kyoto is some legally binding agreement to reduce greenhouse gases.
This protocol is full of holes. It's as full of holes as a Swiss cheese.
We can only do our small part in communications. Whether we succeed, my goodness, it's for our grandchildren to decide.
Welcome to Greenpeace Odyssey, a program that will follow the adventures of a group of men and women whose flag is the rainbow itself. I'm your host, Bob Hunter, in Kyoto, Japan, the home of Zen Buddhism, where representatives from 150 countries have gathered to grapple with the nightmare of possibly catastrophic climate change. A crew of Greenpeacers arrived here after an odyssey that took them from the melting polar ice caps to the threatened paradises of the tropics, a voyage of discovery through the strange new seas of a changing planet. In January of 1997, one of Greenpeace's 5 ships, the motor vessel Arctic Sunrise, sailed to the bottom of the world, Antarctica. This continent is by far the most remote and arguably the most pristine of the Earth's land masses. Over the next year, the Arctic Sunrise and her crew would journey on and literally sail the planet from pole to pole.
The pole-to-pole campaign was an effort to do basically two things. Go to the places where the planet is already experiencing the effects of climate change, and also confront the perpetrators of the climate problem in the frontiers. So we sent an expedition to Antarctica. We involved, in some sense, almost all the offices of Greenpeace were involved. We had scientists that came from various places in the world, and there was the usual boat crew on this ice-class vessel.
Everybody on the ship was stunned and extremely concerned and quite upset by some of the things we saw and heard.
You saw this stuff with your own eyes. Can you describe?
Well, the biggest thing that we saw was we sailed into an area the size of Luxembourg, where in 1995 a whole ice shelf, so ice shelves are floating bits of ice on the water that are permanent, so it's existed for tens of thousands of years. This whole ice shelf in January 1995, over the course of a month, collapsed into the sea. It had been undermined by the warm sea air.
It was known as the Larsen A ice shelf, over 200 meters thick and impenetrable by ship. Today, a slushy ice is all that remains that can be navigated quite easily. In recent years, 5 of the Antarctic Peninsula's most northerly ice shelves have collapsed. Another is on the verge.
In this Larsen B ice shelf, which is the next one south of the ice shelf that's already collapsed. We were told by the British scientists who gave us the satellite images that there were what the cracks had been like in Larsen A before it collapsed. So we were looking for the same cracks in Larsen B. So we flew helicopters over the Larsen B ice shelf, and the cracks were just there, very easy to see, huge cracks running for kilometres, 20 metres wide or so, and they go right through the ice shelves, and they really show that the integrity of that ice shelf is also quite compromised, and it's probably going to go in the next few years.
Over the last half-century, average temperatures on the Antarctic Peninsula have risen by 2.5 degrees centigrade, the fastest rate of regional warming observed anywhere in the world. The Adelie and rockhopper penguin populations have declined, and given Antarctica's sensitive and fragile balance of nature, other species are at risk too.
What we've seen is over the last 100 years, the Earth's surface temperature has increased about 0.5 degree centigrade. Precipitation patterns are changing throughout the world, glaciers are retreating, and sea level is rising. So there is no doubt something is happening to the Earth's atmosphere and the Earth's climate.
As complicated as the actual science of climate change is, the cause couldn't be simpler to understand. The Earth's temperature is slowly but surely heating up because of us. More specifically, it's caused by our burning of fossil fuels and widespread destruction of forests.
If we don't do anything, the atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases will rise significantly. And what we're predicting is that the Earth would warm between 1 and 3.5 degrees centigrade, sea level would rise 15 to 95 centimetres, and precipitation patterns would change such that in many areas of the world we'd see more floods and more droughts.
Flooding in the United States, bushfires in Australia, a melting permafrost in the Siberian Arctic, and desertification in Tunisia, all catastrophes believed to be linked to the phenomenon of global warming. However, even with all the physical evidence, the science of climate change is not without its critics. Are you saying that you don't believe that there's a process of global warming happening?
It is the opinion of our scientists, and we have a board of about 40 top-notch scientists and academics from leading universities and laboratories around the world, that there is no scientific credibility behind the global warming theory. We don't see any real-world evidence from growing zone maps to you name it, really, that suggests that anything the environmentalists are saying is occurring regarding global warming is true.
Those that try and debunk not only the computer models but the theory have to recognise that scientific uncertainty goes in two directions. We may be overestimating the impact of human activity on climate. We may be underestimating the impact.
6 months after leaving Antarctica, the crew of the Arctic Sunrise found themselves an entire planet away in the Arctic. A recurring early spring and prolonged fall are northerly signs of warming, and it has caused the Barron Glacier to recede by about 10 miles.
Everybody says, well, this is such a slow motion change, but it's not slow motion.
No, it's not. It's happening very, very fast, frighteningly fast, I think.
And at that rate, it's not going to be long before something dramatic has occurred.
No.
One of the largest animals on the planet to be affected, the polar bear.
I can imagine it would probably affect the females a lot more, because they have to come on shore to actually have their cubs. And I mean, if the ice starts breaking up a lot earlier, and then not forming till a lot later, I mean, because they still have to go out to sea to feed, and I could imagine like much larger expanses of open sea would disrupt their feeding routines quite severely.
Coming up next, Greenpeace sails into Kyoto, a political battlefield where nothing less than the fate of the planet's climate hangs in the balance.
Six years ago, the world's governments got together, thanks to organisations like Greenpeace, to decide on how we were going to save the climate. That was the Earth Summit. 6 years later, here we are, with the politicians all trying to do something, or we're trying to get them to do something to finally reduce carbon emissions.
Never in the history of the world has there been a gathering quite like this one in Kyoto, with hundreds of delegates and thousands of reporters trying to come to terms with the most complicated challenge ever faced by the human race. Accordingly, Greenpeace has had to learn how to navigate murky and often turbulent geopolitical waters. On this leg of the journey, Greenpeace Odyssey's Todd Southgate follows them into the media maelstrom.
I think this week, or my view anyway, is that everybody except the really core political team should be moving much more towards focusing on media now. Holger and Kari and now Jonathan are going to probably need help just getting stuff out.
The meetings, the discussions and days are all long. The 18-person crew from Greenpeace offices from around the world has to engage in the messy business of lobbying delegates and press alike.
People think that we just bounce around in zodiacs and do funny things on the high seas. There's a lot of breadth and depth to Greenpeace that people aren't aware of. Whilst we do our protests and our actions, we also have got political lobbyists here, very sophisticated political lobbyists.
I don't know how much input you can have on the Canadian delegation, but speak to the ministers, and it's so important. We can have a good trading system that works. If I can take 2 minutes of your time while you're walking.
You're trying to convince them of something?
Yes, exactly. My role is to make sure that the protocol that is signed here is not full of loopholes. On est arrivé à la conclusion que, par exemple, au Canada, when I go and talk to those people, I bring in scientific arguments, methodological arguments. Perhaps one of the most important things NGOs can do is give them information on what other people are saying. Because essentially Canada speaks to the US, a couple of European countries, and that's it. They never speak to people from developing countries. They don't speak to China. We do that. So we can help people see or understand the views of different parties.
Which puts almost all the burden on, from the North American perspective, on us, and the Americans don't do a dick.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks a lot. How about a little shot with our friends from the industry?
What I've heard, I actually read in the newspapers more than what I've heard here, but...
You're not putting a banner up, you're not zooming in a zodiac, you're lobbying, you're negotiating, and it works.
Definitely, but we need the zodiacs, we need the banner, we need the climbers. But this is something totally different. It's the suit, the tie, the talk. The other one is a little more confrontational. This one is on more friendly terms.
We've also got our campaigners here who are talking to industrialists, to the business community. We're all here in Kyoto, and we've got a media team.
Now, good luck. Be calm. You'll be great.
Thanks. I get hyper beforehand, and then I... Thank you. So tell Matthew good luck for me also.
Yeah.
Okay. You got tapes?
Yeah. Where are we off to?
We are off to the basement of the Prince Hotel, which is where the radio and TV people are. I just want to let you know that Greenpeace, WWF, and Friends of the Earth are going to do a stand-up in that room right after the Gore speech.
Okay, which room? The NGO?
So you have a program at 10:30? I'm going to actually be on CNN, but I have someone... How about Matthew Spencer from our UK office? He's excellent. Bye! BBC World!
Is that good?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because now we have the two major live international programs that are both going to have Greenpeace spokespeople.
What's the benefit of courting the media and pulling them on side and briefing them?
Because politicians only do stuff when they think their voters care. And the reason why they're concerned about these issues is because organisations like us have done our work to bring to their attention the problems that are going on with the climate.
Yes, hi.
My name's May. I'm going to be interviewing you today.
Coming out of Gore, May Lee will pick it up, introduce you and Clement Malin, Senior Vice President of Texaco. All right, on my left, Katie Cato.
Oh, right. Lovely.
Senior Vice President. Okay.
That's going to be fun.
And she'll mediate reaction. We're expecting this, we're expecting that. Any surprises, no surprises, yes surprises, good, bad, evil, I mean, whatever.
How well do you know each other?
I just met him here.
Oh, did you? It
Yeah.
seems to get on that you've known each other for years.
Well, I do a daily sweep where I go by and I visit all the journalists. And so, you know, I've just become pals with, I mean, when you see them every day and it's like, hello. A lot of people sort of kiss ass to journalists. They're sort of like, can you cover us? Whereas I'm kind of more of the like, I'm here, what do you need? Whatever.
You turned into a bit of a buddy. You helped them out.
And they do me too. Yeah, I mean, it's mutual. You know, I understand the constraints they're under. I want them to report fairly. If they report fairly, we win.
Simple as that.
Yep.
And after speaking on the telephone from here a short time ago with President Clinton, I'm instructing our delegation right now to show increased negotiating flexibility.
For both perspectives here, we have two guests joining me right now. Clement Malin, who is the International Chamber of Commerce and also Senior Vice President of Texaco. And we have Kaylee Kreider of Greenpeace. Thank you both for being with us.
Es geht hier den Schutz unseres Klimas und unserer Welt.
We've been going for 25 years and have developed some very clear strategies in terms of attracting the media attention. And our main objective is to get the consumer public on our side. If you can get the general public on your side and sell those issues to the general public, then you are going to win in the end. Whether we succeed, my goodness, it's for our grandchildren to decide.
The imagery will be just
Strong
about
enough.
as big as the mountain, and it'll be extremely clear. It's just about perfect conditions for it. We don't have a moon yet, and it's pretty dark, so
It's good.
these guys are happy.
Good. We're proud of you.
Why did we choose a laser as an action or as an event at this?
One of the things that we wanted to do here, because in Japan, the normal direct approach that we're having will not be understood. We will be seen as terrorists trying to do something, so we need to find new and very innovative ways to get our message across without really crushing into a culture and being insensitive to a culture. So that's why we chose this very visible but yet very low, aggressive manner of getting our message across.
Of course, with 10 days in Kyoto, Greenpeace couldn't just leave it at lobbying. They had to do a little bit more than that.
It's Antarctic meltwater, which Greenpeace collected in the Antarctic.
Well, thank you very much.
It's the genuine article.
It says, Al Gore, cut the hot air or the penguin will get it.
We collected this meltwater from the last ice shelf.
Oh, well
so we're going.
What we've seen in the last 10 days and in the last years is oil companies holding the climate to the hostage of their desire to explore for more fossil fuels and pump more CO2 into the atmosphere.
As it's currently framed, the proposal is totally inadequate environmentally. It does not protect the world's wildlife. It does not protect the world's human population. It does not protect the climate, and it certainly does not protect the planet.
America has 5% of the world's population that uses 25% of the energy. How can you call that efficient?
I would say that the other 75% need to catch up to the United States and start to live in our standards.
Start to burn more oil.
Yes,
more
absolutely.
coal. Burn more gas.
It would be what you are trying to do is deny the developing world the luxuries that we have in the West. You want to keep them poor.
No, you are, because you're using
what
I would
like
to
use. I'd like to see them go through the same transformation and the same sort of development that we in the West have already experienced back in the 18... Absolutely.
You would like them
Our
to have
forefathers...
dioxin. You would like them to burn oil. You'd like to have pollution. You would like them to choke on waste.
I would like them to have cars. I would like to let them have electricity, modern farming, modern medicine, modern agriculture. Pesticides are good.
Tempers flare and anxieties build as the talks kick into overdrive. on this, the final night of negotiations.
People are really, really tense. Call you back in 10 minutes. I think we should allow for that kind of time.
3:40 in the morning, the media pack has thinned out. The Greenpeace lobbyists are still out there somewhere pursuing delegates to the last minute, but this is beyond the 11th hour. There's still a 50-50 chance that the whole thing might fall apart at the last minute, and the whole effort over all these years will have been in vain. The problems arose during a review process of the protocol's final draft. A heated debate erupted between industrialized and developing countries. For journalists, environmentalists, and the world, it becomes a long, drawn-out waiting game.
This is the stressful time?
Well, yeah, I think this is the most frustrating time because, throughout our campaigning, we could have, we have done what we could have done, and then while negotiations are still moving, you can do it. But once sort of all the big guns are in one room, there's not a lot of potential of influencing anymore.
With a huge number of legal consequences.
After what seemed an eternity, finally, a deal.
Will recommend the adoption of this protocol to the conference by unanimity.
A protocol that asked the world to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by 5% from 1990 levels by the year 2012. Seen by some as at least the minimum necessary something, but seen by Greenpeace as a failure, a sign that the battle has just begun.
One can't help but feeling a bit frustrated by everything, really. I mean, what's the reality? The reality is, at best, we're going to be looking at 4, 5, 6, maybe 7% reductions, and that's pushing it with all the loopholes. What does that mean for the climate? Nothing. And I think the whole team is feeling fairly depressed and fairly low. And rather than before, we were thinking, what more can we do? What more can we do? Now, as a manager in this organisation, I'm sort of feeling, how can we make people feel proud of what we've done and take away some feeling of success? And I think we can. I mean, first of all, we've generated the most fantastic array of images. Greenpeace is in the press all over the world. We have been responsible for telling the world that our politicians have seriously let us down, and that we're going to use this as the beginning of a new campaign to convince the world that renewable energy sources is the only way for the future if we're going to save this climate.
Hope you enjoyed the journey. Join us for our next adventure. I'm Bob Hunter in Kyoto, Japan. This is Greenpeace Odyssey.